going to unseal them, and we can just find out just how cool and smart we are. But it's time for round 2 of the Pro Tour here in Baltimore, presented by Star City Games. We're having a good time here, and what better way to play Flesh and Blood when, like you mentioned, the Welcome to Wraith OGs. Bravo, Showstopper, rocking the big bonk hammer with Katsu with the little slice and dice, little Kadachi action.
Do take note those names are swapped around. So as you can see, Clark there on the right playing Bravo, with Mateusz on the left playing Katsu. But that's going to get fixed up here right quick as we dive into this just original matchup. This is one of the classics that if you played all the way back in the Welcome to Wraith days, this was a very popular matchup back and forth. Bravo was one of those heroes that looked strong just straight off the blocks when this game came out, so it was very highly played. In fact, I played Bravo perhaps mostly, I would say, throughout the WTR days. And Katsu was one that took a little bit of growing, I think. It took some time for people to kind of really get on it, but took just the game by storm for a while by playing very defensively. And here we've got Kadachi, and then breakpoint attack.
Yeah, this is a big get, actually, from Mateusz here. And frankly, like the Kadachi tickle, it's, you're going first here as the Katsu player. And typically when you're going first, the player who's on the receiving end is completely content to just, dump their hand. They'll be able to draw up. But when it's a little tickle like this off of the pitch from Lord of Wind, you got to respect this. And, are you really going to give cards? But look at the action right out of the gate here. It's snatch into the snappies right away.
Right. Yeah, I think this is technically turn 2 because I think Clark started us off and literally just arsenaled a card. And so he's choosing to hold everything in his hand and accepting all of this damage. At this point, basically just hoping that you don't go crazy on it because most likely there's something huge like a crippling crush or a spinal crush that you can dominate or possibly even pummel in the hand of Clark, because that is really a strong ticket in this matchup where you're playing against someone that wants to go super wide.
So again, yeah, that's our bad. We came into the game maybe a half turn too late, but it's all good. So getting those Iron Rot boots is a nice get here, but you're blocking that second Kadachi essentially to just eliminate the value from the Mask of Momentum here. The Snatch to follow up, gonna draw the card here. It's gonna get the Snapdragon Scalers to give it go again. We're gonna activate Katsu. Now what that does is it allows you to go ahead, toss out, banish a card with 0 cost to go and fetch a card with combo. What is he going to get? Well, that looks like Descendant Gustwave, if I'm not mistaken, so that's going to have a natural go again as well. So we're continuing this train onward, and Mask of Momentum, again, potentially threatening. So seeing the value of what Katsu can do, whereas Bravo wants to bonk hard, Katsu wants to do a little bit of slice and dice over a long period.
Yeah, this is one of those new cards that was delivered to Katsu via Outsiders, basically a whole new combo line. Descendant Gustwave kind of feeds into a possible Bonds of Ancestry in hand, perhaps, here. Could be what we see following up. If you go find a Descendant Gustwave, we can assume after the Katsu effect resolves is that we're going to follow this up with more on the combat chain of this combo line.
I believe it's a Bonds of Ancestry that follows this up, if I'm not mistaken, which allows you to actually banish a card from your graveyard to find a copy of that particular card. Right now, the only option he has is right there. Is the Whelming Gustwave, which is he's going to do. So he's going to go ahead and take it out. So banishing the Whelming Gustwave from the discard pile, searching for a copy of Whelming Gustwave. So in this particular case here, I don't think it's actually connecting from the combo chain at all. It's more so about just poking through for more damage and also threatening a Mask of Momentum. Now, he does have another card in hand, does have a Quicken token as well, apparently just sitting over there underneath the Katsu. Just in case, you might need it. It's there if you want it, but that also gives some information of, what could he possibly be playing that grants the Quicken token.
So as he goes and fetches that Whelming, which we can assume is the red, which is going to be able to swing for just an additional 3. It feels very Fi-like. It's just another head jab, essentially, you can throw out there that represents free 3 damage. The question on Clark's mind, and he is staunch and steadfast in not wanting to give up his combo line or his play. He's giving him a blue. He's going to block for 5. There's the follow-up with the Whelming that we saw banished. And what is the final card is truly the question here.
Clark just kind of shaking his head, saying, "All right, then." I mean, it becomes difficult where I mean, look how long this combat chain has extended, and the Bravo player has so much options to actually block, but Katsu is able to extend beyond 3, 4, 5, potentially even up to 6 in terms of how long this can go. And we haven't seen the fireworks of those beautifully, masterfully cobbled together combat chains that are comboing off of one another. The surging strike into the whelming gust wave into whatnot. There's so many. Outsiders has really shored up and kind of given a little bit more leniency in terms of how you can put these combo lines together. You can kind of branch out and fork on the road. Do I go down this way or this road? I have options, which is really given Katsu an extra kick of the pants to, really push the damage.
And here is the play that he was staunch. Yep,
oh,
exactly.
Nasty.
And so he is dominating a crippling crush. That's exactly the play that you hold your hand for like that. Representing 47. No, it's not really 47 damage. But it is 11 dominate, and it is going to beg cards. And is that a D-react? That was my question I was going to bring up, and it was a flick black indeed. So he is able to block out a lot of this, and I believe he blocked enough there to protect the life total. Holding on to that D-react was huge. We knew it was a card that couldn't be played because whelming consumed the final action point. But if it was a D-react, it prevents exactly this swing back, and that's what he had.
Clark Jansen holding onto his hand to go ahead and send it back in the worst possible way, which is a dominated crippling crush. There's 3 of those lurking about, so Mateusz Jasinski is very happy to have dodged that bullet. Clark Jansen, however, sent it back, but now he's on the receiving end again, and he's going to have to find another tempo-buying play. And in terms of what he can find to potentially send it back, crippling crush is certainly an option, but there are definitely other cards that Bravo can lean on to buy that tempo back.
Yeah, you can look at things like Spinal Crush, just a very solid card, and just threatening a very strong on hit against Mateusz on Katsu here. And starting this turn off, not swinging Kodachis, which could tell us a composition of the hand. It was a 3-card hand going into this, so that could mean that we're looking at a combination of red cards. Could mean that we don't have a 0 cost, which would be rare in this deck. That we could pitch for Kodachis, because you do generally want to start with Kodachis and threaten your first mask draw and then kind of extend. And it does look like, yeah, there's a 0 cost snatch that just represents the on-hit draw card, possibly letting you choose what card goes into the arsenal at the end of this turn.
So no options for go again over here. Even if that's a Razor Reflex in his hand, there's no way to pay for it. So this is basically all he's presenting. Clark actually can just swallow this and say, well, it's, there's still a card in Mateusz's hand here. And if he opts to just let this fly, that means that Mateusz is going to have 2 cards and only 1 can go into Arsenal. So you're not really giving your opponent any extra leeway on this. But Clark, again, if his hand is bad, you can definitely block this out. But the first 100 wins was given the green light. So I suspect that the snatch might be the same. He might have another Haymaker that he wants to dominate. And on the back of a Seismic Surge, you do get the discount here. So we'll see how Clark Jansen wants to approach this. But that Seismic Surge will make something like a Spinal Crush 4, which means that a 2-blue pitch can dominate that Spinal.
And Clark deciding here to hold on to the hand. I don't want to call it very, greedy in general, but when you're thinking from, the Bravo perspective, if you can cause disruption and slow down Katsu's turns, like this, for example, it represented across the board 7 damage and a possible card draw, which we did see. But it was only 7 damage, and there was really no other recourse. And so if you can then present more threats here, in this case, with a possible Command and Conquer pummel play, right?
Well,
pummel possibility.
Please, this one was written in the stars. Clark Jansen holding on to 4 cards to present 1. Like, let's get real here. Mateusz Jasinski knows what's coming around the pipe, but the question is does he want to give up to 10 block here, as Clark Jansen pretty much says, just give it to me at this rate. And there it is, red pummel on top. Is that the red one?
Oh, and look at this. He's playing reinforce the line to stop the discard, but it doesn't even matter. This is the beautiful part about that strategy. Clark taking what some would call a greedy line. Really what it's doing is it's basically just guaranteeing that you're playing a 1-card hand. Because if the pummel goes through, well, they're losing a card. And if they have defense reactions, well, they're giving up a defense reaction and losing a card. My goal is to slow your turns down and find consistent threats and disruption.
Now, reinforce the line to me sounds like a symptom of the fact that players like Mateusz here are worried about the dominate effects of more so Azalea than anything else. So that these are the cards that are now squeaking their way into lists to protect against other heroes, but they also have applications against a hero like Bravo that is not only going to dominate, but also go over the top with pummels.
Yeah, and Reinforce the Line is one of those really cool cards that has a lot of flexibility that you don't necessarily see on surface level. Because you look at what I would consider the premier aggro deck in the format right now in Lexi, and you can chuck a single block in, and then if they try to rain razors for lethal, then you can reinforce the line and say, yeah, we're good. I blocked that out, and it has usability. It has some utility in that matchup of perhaps playing in the premier aggro deck.
That is a Soul Bead Strike 4. No go again. However, on hit, it will. This is an awkward block, but Clark Jansen has plenty of opportunity here to block with equipment, but it looks like he's, again, coveting that hand. So maybe he found another Crippling Crush.
Yeah, and it also could be that, we just haven't found our first comfortable all-blue hand that allows me to block damage and then just chuck the Anothos out there. After creating a Seismic. But here's Spinning Wheel Kick. I believe that's a Spinning Wheel Kick that's going to come across for 4 with Go again. A new card from Outsiders.
4 into 4 breakpoints aplenty. Mateusz is really laying it on thick. Clark Jansen at 18 as the Guardian. And like you mentioned, Clark Jansen, this was his first hero, and it's his ongoing love affair over here with with Chesty McGee over there. And Clark Jansen, both of these players at 1-0. So Katsu actually already want to know this Team Poland that came in basically all on Katsu, and yeah, it's fun to play for sure. That Katsu was my first hero, and I adored it. And seeing a resurgence of it and successfully, converting that first round, it's very early in the tournament for sure. But who knows? Katsu might be the secret spice here. That might be the story of the tournament.
And would you look at this, a huge life lead for Katsu in this. This is not necessarily what you expect in this matchup, particularly if you're from the Bravos perspective, where you're looking to play disruptive attacks, big dominate type things, and here we're just going to chuck out a debilitate, which is a blue and not representing a ton of damage, but possibly threatening nope, no pummel. Just
no pummel.
Represented it, and before he even could say, and I'm representing pummel, Mateusz yeah, it's fine. Just come on.
Now, debilitate against a hero like Katsu is less effective, mainly because the first attack is going to be -2. You just throw a Kodachi in front of that and just sort of eat up that debuff. As you see over here, Kodachi for -1. So Mateusz should be gaining a life here, I believe. Those are the rules?
I don't think that's how that works.
Well, what do I know? There's the first Surging Strike. 5 go again. This is the first symptom of a pretty nasty disease, which might be a huge combo line.
This is the classic combo line that Katsu plays into because it allows you to access his specializations down the line, right?
Basically, and this can turn into a Whelming Gust Wave. It can turn into a Descendant Gust Wave, which can be a gigantic maelstrom of nastiness. As you can see, he's going to throw in front of that a Macho Grande and the Tech Plate. So that's a nice way to eat that up. The question is there an Ancestral Empowerment, which puts you over the top?
He just has it. He has it when he needs it. The Ancestral is going to come across, both giving you the hit here, which keeps the Mask of Momentum alive for a card draw on the next Chain Link, and also gives you the card draw itself, which is fantastic because you're reloading. And look at that, you've got the Descendant.
And this is a nasty follow-up. Now, Whelming Gust Wave would have been a 4 with an on-hit of drawing, which is nasty in itself. But hey, let's just push the damage. Mateusz Jasinski with the 5 go again for free. Again, following those combo lines. We saw a Lord of Wind pitched early. That typically was the bread and butter of the finishing, the end game for Katsu. But you don't necessarily need an end game when you've been laying it on this thick.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a more of a block-out turn where Clark is looking to keep a single blue, possibly 2 blues, and just come back with an Othos. And it looks like the hand is decently set up for that. Now, after this, attack, it's just basically going to pass the turn, and that's possibly a little bit of providence for Clark here because he's able to keep at least one more card, and he could have drawn into something he could possibly throw down for maybe 6 or 5 if you've got 2 blues. And
I think that Mateusz might have the card that he drew was not necessarily to his liking. He had the option there to actually break the breaking scales and go over the top, connect and continue. But I think he just did not like what he found. But why not? Let's go for the Anathos 4/6, the old-fashioned way.
Just throw a Nothos out there after creating a seismic so that you can meet the requirement of a Nothos, and then you got your 6 damage, and you get a free arsenal. Get a little bit of damage prevention on your opponent's turn. Throw 6, play the classic Guardian lines here, and there's a Spinning Wheel Kick to start. Now, do keep in mind, Spinning Wheel Kick, a new card from the new set Outsiders, guaranteed go again. It's built into the card, so you're paying for it here. You can also follow it up with another copy of Spinning Wheel Kick to trigger the combo effect. A very cool effect, allowing you to basically anti-fatigue in a way.
What's awesome is that, you and I this morning, actually, we met in the gym at 7 a.m. We were actually practicing karate, and we were doing spinning heel kicks. Actually,
Yes.
incredibly, you can leap. This is incredible, folks. If you're listening out there, DM Armada can do a roundhouse spinning wheel kick and hit a target that's 27 feet in the air. It's incredible. They actually had to increase the height of the ceiling just for your theatrics. Absolutely impressive.
You don't have to tell people about that. Look, I know people out there are gonna think that I'm showboating, that I'm really showing off, but it's just practice. It's just daily grind, showing up.
It
was better.
Listen, I mean,
That's all it is.
You're not going to gloat. I'll gloat on behalf of you. Unfortunately, Brendan Patrick actually just wussed out after he heard about your spinning wheel kick practice and the karate we were doing. It's incredible. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna. You know what? Unfortunately, I can't make it.
I'm gonna pass on the gym. Yeah, that's right. Now Katsu trigger here with the discard or with the banish, I should say, so that he can go and search up a card. I didn't quite make out what he searched up, but he's gonna. It doesn't matter because he's gonna follow it up with the classic surging.
So
5.
Yeah, again, classic surging. Again, those are very valuable cards. They're the kickoff of a pretty nasty story, the first chapter, the prologue, if you will. 5 go again. It is a costly card, though. It's
Yes.
It costs you 2, so it's
Mhm.
it's a hefty price to pay. But if you can continue this nasty train here, it looks like he's actually going to go ahead and search out the red Whelming Gust Wave. So
No,
again,
that was what he banished.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So you know what? He might actually be looking for like Descendants just to get the damage in as much as possible.
Got 1 card, I believe, left in hand here. Possibly more than 1. The card's represented there on the side here. And just looking to represent more damage than at this point Clark can really just disrespect. He has to consider the possibility of just attack reacts that push extra damage at this point. He has to consider playing a little bit more conservative game. Because you're at a lower life total at this point, you can't look at full hand keeps, no blocks, play Crippling Crush as a line anymore. And things get a lot more sticky. They get a lot more greasy in these lower life totals as Bravo because all of your stuff is very expensive.
Mateusz's big turning point here, I think, was the fact that when Clark Jansen just took it off the chin to send that dominated Crippling Crush, hoping to buy back all the momentum, it was just gooned by equipment, block from hand, and a D-react from Arsenal. Clark was really leaning on that to buy everything, all the tempo back, and it did not happen. There's the red Whelming Gust Wave, the natty right from hand, opting in this case to go ahead. That's going to be 4 go again on hit. That is going to draw another card. In fact, it's going to draw 2 cards based off the Mask of Momentum. And keep in mind here, Armada, there's still the threat of not just, let's say, another Ancestral Empowerment, but those breaking scales loom large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you do want to consider the possibility. Oh, he's gonna block with both last pieces of equipment, so it puts you to exactly 5, which means if this is another Ancestral, no, it's not. Okay. There was a moment there, I think Clark even thought it. If this is Ancestral, I'm standing up and walking off.
I gotta, you gotta kind of at a certain point just think that Clark has probably put in 0 reps against Bravo in preparation, or very minimal. You know,
against Katsu.
Against Katsu. Yeah, I think that in terms of his practice, he's likely thinking that if he was actually going to practice against a ninja, it would have probably been 5 just in case. I'm sure that most of his reps were against Azalea, Oldhim, and Lexi. I don't think that he gave much credence to the power level of what this Polish team has brought to the table.
Well, I will say this to Clark's credit: he's played this hero his entire time in Flesh and Blood, and if anyone would know any matchups, it would be Clark. I do want to point out that this has been a fantastically piloted game thus far by Mateusz on Katsu. He's had exactly what he's needed into the disruption that Clark has presented, basically the entire time. And because he has such a life lead, at this point, he can just take whatever is sent his way and put the onus on Clark to deal with the problems at hand.
Clark, an amazing human being. Clark's actually invited me to go check out a Michigan Wolverines game with him, and I'm like, if I'm ever in the area, my friend, I absolutely will. But at this point, he is the one who's getting just torn to shreds here.
Yeah.
Those Kodachis haven't even seen much play. It has just been the old-fashioned way, the way Grandma used to play. Just attack actions, let's go again. Katsu really bringing the fire here. Clark's hand getting gobbled up by this combat chain that just goes on until next week.
And there's the Dishonor play. Now, is Dishonor triggered here? Because we have Surging Whelming Bonds.
It is. I think you've got the whole thing. I don't know. I got to double check if Dishonor is looking for Descendant Gust Wave or any Gust Wave. We're going to double check here. If that's the case, it's not the most...
No, it's not. Unfortunately, Descendant Gust Wave specifically. Either way, it was representing a nice chunk of 4 damage and puts Clark down to 3. And when you get this low against Katsu, or really any ninja, you run the risk of being completely Kodachi locked, where they can just present a blue, pitch a blue, present 2 Kodachis, take 2 cards from hand.
Yeah, that's a great 2-for-1. Again, 1 card to get 2 out of your opponent's hand is going to be nasty. And I'm wondering if Mateusz Jasinski is holding on to a Razor Reflex. If there's one swimming about, that's the shark in the pond that you've got to worry about here. Is Clark Jansen can't, if he disrespects one Kodachi and Mateusz has it, then that's nasty. But here it is. Kodachi Lux, circa 2019, ladies and gentlemen.
2019 called and wants its Kodachis back. Chuck the cards in front of it. Play out some breakpoint attacks, slowly bleed your opponent out. And I think Clark is feeling the beginning of the end. He's going to snap that on there. Going to force a point of damage across.
What an absolute pounding Clark has taken here as Mateusz Jasinski on Katsu, bringing the old school ninja. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. We're always talking about reboots and remakes. Well, it looks like Katsu's gotten rebooted. And it is good. It is good. As we can see, every single time Kodachi's come to play, Clark is respecting the Razor Reflex, not letting anything go. But he has also been caught here, it seems, with a lot of red cards in hand. So, he's able to just sort of protect that life lead. But at a certain point, you're down to 2. It's getting real greasy here for Clark Jansen, who's running out of cards and running out of leeway here.
Yeah, and there's the block for 3 on a Bonds of Ancestry that was banished. And I think this might be the end of the line. With 1 card left in hand, that Bonds should trigger and have go again, I believe, because that was Descendant right before, I believe. And so this Bonds of Ancestry is most likely going to spell the end of Clark here on Bravo.
Mateusz Jasinski just double-checking the banished cards, the discarded pile, everything. You're so close. Now, keep in mind, there's a massive cushion here. So if Clark Jansen magically is able to get a brilliant hand, Mateusz can just take it and move on to the next. There's no way that Mateusz is going to respect any cards. It's handshakes all around.
That's the game. He was able to banish off of Bonds here off the hit there and send in the Dishonor for the win.